Okay, thank you for being here.
You're welcome, yeah.
Kenny. It's a pleasure to have you. Obviously, a lot of the students here will be familiar with your work or what you do as far as being part of the university. But the intent here is to kind of go through from the beginning, natural progression of what your involvement with music has been. Obviously, we know you from some examples you've given that you're a slightly unique case in that sense. But so we might as well begin where it's logical, which is at the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Glasgow, and because of my father's job, we moved around quite a lot, but mainly within the city as such. Until, I've more or less in Glasgow the vast majority of my life, although.
Yeah, okay. So, did you grow up with a small or a large family, or how many people?
Two sisters, one brother. Older sister and brother, one younger sister as such. So,
right. Are they significantly younger or older, or is it kind of all the same
no,
generation?
the actual fact, my sister, older sister is 12 years older, and my brother is 7 years older than me, and my younger sister is something like 3.5 years younger than me. So there was quite a wide age range in the family.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, what was your father's profession?
He was in the fire service. So he was in the fire service throughout the 60s and 70s when sort of Glasgow had experienced quite a wide range of quite extensive of fires and whatever. So my dad was quite involved quite highly in all these, and saw that through, and then eventually moved out to the outer edges of Lanarkshire as such, but Glasgow's always been my home as such.
Yeah, for sure. So did your mother work when you were growing up?
No, she did later on. She worked as an auxiliary in the health service as such, but this was later on in the family growing up a bit.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So obviously it's different for a lot of people in terms of where they grow up and how they grow up, but was music a part of your household growing up? Was it something?
No, not actually. Yeah, I mean, I also remember in our household there'd been about a handful of records being there from musicals and Elvis Presley and things like this, but it wasn't particularly a big part of the family as such. If there was one member of the family engaged with music, popular music, that would have been myself from the ages about 8 or 9 onwards as such. But I particularly remember when I was 12 or so, getting to a stage where you engage with music so much that you knew every song that was out and chart positions, and charts were very important in these days, and engaging with quite a wide range of artists as well, and being able to converse with your friends at school about what new songs are coming out, and had they got some single or some album or whatever, and I was able to talk to my friends with a bit of authority as well, because I knew, as I say, what was happening. I read the music papers from an early age as well. I remember getting NME when I was about 9 or something like this, and I still get it now. And so I've always been fairly up to date with what's happening in music from an early age.
Yeah, I mean, even from personal experience, just going through music education, it's kind of interesting to see people's perspectives from not having a formal education in music and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so obviously, if you found the knowledge yourself to kind of put it to work, is quite interesting. Obviously, so the first medium you listened to music on would have been vinyl.
Vinyl, and it's a scarce quality as well, because we didn't have the pocket money didn't permit me to buy as much vinyl as I wanted to, and there wasn't much vinyl in the house, but it's mainly through radio, and Radio 1 at that point was. You could listen to it then. I can't listen to it now, but Radio 1 then was the way in which you engaged with music.
Oh, for sure. As far as it was a vast majority back then, it's probably still a large group now, but.
Yeah, and it was. I think that the way things were then as well, you had the one main radio station, you had the one main chart show, which was Top of the Pops, which more or less half the nation watched as well. And then for the more sort of rock stuff, there was the Old Grey Whistle Test, but that was more or less it, and the NME and various things like that.
Yeah.
So that's the way I sort of found out about new music, whatever. But a thing to sort of maybe think about there as well is that most of the music that you read about you couldn't hear, because it was mainly chart music during the day, and on the fringes of the chart you got some stuff in the Old Grey Whistle Test, but a lot of the albums I really bought initially, but without hearing them, because you couldn't hear them, and you make a few mistakes, but you make some great discoveries as well.
Sure. It's just interesting to say that. I think even personally, and a lot of my peers would probably never buy something we haven't heard now, mainly because it's so easy to hear before you bought it, obviously. But kind of a different situation.
And it just it highlights the importance of music journalism at that point. You know, you read a good review of an album, and you want to get it back. Then there was the next problem was actually trying to get the album because it might not be in stock or whatever, and going from record shop to try and get it. Or occasionally you would listen to it beforehand if you get a chance to ask the record shop owner to put it on for you, but in a lot of cases you don't. And I think there was a lot of anticipation, and usually the reviews were accurate, and you know it did appeal to you.
Yeah. No. So you went to obviously attended primary school, secondary school. Did you enjoy school? Was it something you?
Yeah, I enjoyed it to a certain extent. I think because I moved around a lot, I was at a lot of different schools and whatever. But yeah, I probably could have engaged more with my schoolwork than I should have done. But yeah, enjoyed it to a certain degree. Not over enthusiastic about it as such.
No, for sure. So was music a part of school life at all?
Yeah, I mean it was, and a lot of my school friends were. I mean, I think it was an exciting period of music during that, you know, mid 70s as such, and sort of mid to late 70s, and there's a lot happening music wise, and people were always bringing into your attention new groups and new sounds and whatever. And went to at that point again because of money constraints and whatever.
Right.
Went to a few gigs as well
Yeah.
at the Apollo, and saw some groups there. And you know, there was a real buzz about music at that point. And as I say, it was a key part of what happened at school, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So you obviously you touched on it there, kind of how important was live music. Obviously being, you mentioned radio and vinyl as sort of the kind of listening mediums, but was live music important in early life for you? Was it accessible at all?
Oh yeah, it was accessible as such. The Apollo was the sort of main venue in Glasgow as such, and you could, there was no age restrictions or whatever. It was a dry venue, and the fact that the you know, all you had to do is try and get a ticket. Obviously, get the money together to try and get a ticket as such. And most of the big artists played there. Most of the breaking artists played there as well, and you could get access to it. And it was it was quite a sort of a direct experience. Then, you know, there was no. If I was trying to compare it to a concert now, you always got the impression when you went to Apollo you'd been at a concert. It was a bit run down. It smelt a bit. There was always a bit of an atmosphere at the place, and you were aware of being part of a quite a large audience as such. So it resonated more. Obviously, the age you were at as well, it was bound to resonate. You know, much more than gigs do now. And I'm not trying to glorify gigs then and say they're much better then than they are now. As it's a different set of circumstances as such. But the way in which the live music industry's changed since then means that it's got more professional, it's cleaner, better surroundings, probably better sound. But I don't know if that's devalued the experience at the same time.
Well, I think it's been interesting to kind of to watch that, and obviously from my perspective to go back and look at what it may or may not have been before. Obviously the live music sector is one that's grown, so it's kind of interesting to see that when more money goes into it, it perhaps becomes, you know, like you said, less of an investment on the participants' part. That's pretty interesting. Obviously you mentioned kind of, as live music continues to be part of your life, is it part of life now?
Probably don't go as many gigs as I went to last year. It's just because I don't have the time as much now. But I still go to a lot of gigs. I mean, I think one of the reasons why the Apollo's glorified in a lot of respects is because people maybe stopped going to gigs when they got to a certain age, when you're mid-20s or late 20s, got families and things like that. But I've always tried to go to gigs. So it's like a continuum basically, and I've, you know, I think within the next month I've seen 3 gigs or something like this. But there can be gaps now with a month or 2 when I don't go to a gig, and I feel feel a bit empty. I think I need at least 1 or 2 gigs a month to go. But there was a point maybe 3 years ago I was going to 4 and 5 gigs a week, so there's peaks and troughs and whatever,
Yeah,
But I say hopefully when I finish my studies next year I'll be able to go to more gigs.
Yeah. Obviously, you mentioned the Glasgow Apollo a couple of times, and we are aware of
Yeah.
your work in that regard. So we'll come back to that. But,
Yeah.
one of the interesting things I found about you is that you purported to have not received any music tuition at all in terms of learning an instrument.
Yeah.
Is that through choice, through money, through just?
I think it's a combination of factors. Probably through competence. I discovered at an early age when I was at school, whatever. Trying to use I wasn't particularly proficient using an instrument, whatever. I didn't have the knack for it, let's say.
Yeah.
And I sort of gave that up at an early age. I think I knew what my lack of capabilities were, and I say so. It's not for a want of enthusiasm. I would like to be able to play the guitar and like to be able to play an instrument well, but I just don't have it. I think I went for some various lessons, and I think I've persevered with it. I might have been okay, but I was interested because I thought that was the best way I could articulate my love of music is through playing an instrument, and it wasn't that way, and it wasn't until much later on that I discovered how I could articulate how I felt about music.
Yeah, no, it's very very interesting perspective. Obviously, when you're younger, it's probably easier to just say, oh well, I'll play an instrument and that'll be how I connect with music and whatever.
Yeah.
But if you realise that there is other ways of doing it through either study, through
Yeah.
enjoying live music, whatever, then
Yeah.
opens up a few different avenues for you.
Yeah.
You mentioned that obviously you were probably the most musically focused in your family. Was
Yeah.
there anybody around in your youth, perhaps up to your 20s, that influenced you heavily, like someone local, maybe not a particular artist, but like somebody that you could share music with on a regular basis? Or
Yeah, I mean, it was always a case of going around to your friends at the weekend and Friday night, going around with a pile of albums and things like this. And again, someone put on an album, and it was I suppose you can call them sort of unofficial listening clubs as such. And people you went to gigs with and exchanged a lot of music that way. Most of my friends weren't musicians or anything like that. They in inverted commas or quotation marks, whatever here, liked music, and that was about it. So they played records and went to occasional gig. My enthusiasm seemed to be at a higher level, but none of my friends were at that level. So I tended to go to more gigs. Went to a lot of gigs of my own. I bought more albums, bought more singles than they did. That's the thing. I suppose at the next level it would maybe encompass people who were actually performing music or creating music, but it wasn't really within my circle, So I just tended to be an obsessive amongst a group of friends who like music, I suppose,
Obviously, that's quite an interesting perspective, coming from the perspective of people that obviously have a lot invested in music and kind of it's a large part of their lives and a part of their livelihoods in a lot of cases. To looking at a situation where it's just kind of light entertainment in some cases, where you don't engage with it very often, but just an interesting kind of level of importance in people's lives. So kind of moving forward to your higher education, you've come back to UWS recently. As what you said, a mature student.
Yeah, very mature.
Slightly later down the road than the likes of myself. But did you attend higher education when you were younger?
Yeah, well, what actually happened was that I drifted into a job after leaving school, and I went back to college to get some more qualifications, and was accepted for Glasgow. And in the interim, I went back to work the rest of that summer, whatever. And when my university time came up to commence university, I didn't start. I found that getting a wage was, a means to an end and surviving. So I didn't actually go to uni at that point there as well. So it wasn't till much later before I went back to university.
So obviously that's kind of where you are now in terms of studying music and participating in that kind of. So how did your music education come about? And obviously with attending UWS, I've heard several. Yeah. I'd just worked away in the civil service for years, and I think it was about 1999. I think it was. I had a real bad road traffic accident, which put me out of commission. Nearly put me out of commission full stop.
They put my commission for 4.5 years.
Right.
And my job, funnily enough, was held open for me. And I went back to the job, which I think was probably a mistake, because I realised then that things had changed so much with my sort of perceptions on life because of what had happened,
Right.
that I couldn't do that type of job anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Just, felt that it was not so much beneath me, but I felt there's more important things in life that I could do.
Yeah.
And again, when you've had something like that happen to you, you think about what's important in life. So I decided to quit my job, which was paying okay, I suppose, and I had a career ahead of me in it, as such an advanced career in management, but it didn't thrill me in any great way. It didn't drive me. I think it's a phrase by Morrissey in one of his songs when he talks about a job that it pays his way but it corrodes his soul. And I just felt that, if I continued working in that place, I would be, not have much of a life. So basically, I decided that I wanted to go back and get involved in music, and I went and did an HNC again as a mature student at James Watt and in sound production. And again, I thought this was my way. I knew I wouldn't be, I knew I wasn't creative in that sense. I'd be able to play an instrument, but I thought, well, I'll be creative in that. Sound production, I'll be able to be creative that way as well. And I was slightly, but again, I didn't catch with it. I didn't engage with it the way I thought I would do, because again, it's probably pushing on aspects of skills and attributes that probably still that are slightly remote, are skills and attributes that didn't come naturally to me as such.
Yeah.
So although I could do the basics and all that, and a soundboard and live sound and whatever, I wasn't particularly good at it, and I knew that myself. And I think it's at that point I met Alan Breck, who was at the college one day, and I think I was just about to start my second year, and I had a chat with him, and then he said, well, why don't you apply for the commercial music course, which I hadn't heard about. I wasn't really thinking too far ahead at that point. And I was quite pleased with it because it was a hybrid course.
Yeah.
Had you asked me about, had someone said about a music course before, I would have thought, well, no, I can't do it, I'm not a musician or whatever.
Yeah.
Not realising how things have progressed. So again, I was quite pleased in that respect, that it was a hybrid course and I could focus on things that I could do within the music industries as such.
Yeah.
And initially I thought that the aspects of the music business would be something that I'd be able to engage with. And again, I was slightly wrong in that as well, because through doing some work at UWS and projects and various things, and I ended up managing a band and various things like this, I found that there's aspects of the music business that are very much like the business side of the civil service and various things like this.
Yeah, you can't really see where the music is.
Yeah, exactly. And it was full of people that I really didn't like to spend time with, I wasn't particularly enamoured with a lot of the people I came across, and they would probably say the same about me, but no, there was a side to it I didn't particularly like, and at the end of the day it was just business, and I didn't particularly like that. So it was through another part of the course, that looking at theories and concepts relating to popular music, that I finally thought, yeah, this is really what I want to do. And it sort of all seemed to make sense at that particular point. Just think about music and a bit, be able to analyse music in more depth has been really good, and be able to read so much about what's been written about key aspects of popular music. And again, it was just a case of once this, it took me a year or so into the course before that really, I think I got into third year, because I came in straight into second year.
Right.
So I came into third year when you start getting things like popular culture and music and research practice and all that, that it began to really make sense. And what I thought about popular music wasn't so much wrong, but it was like a surface knowledge of popular music, which is still serving me well, don't get me wrong, but the fact that I can be able now to sort of join the dots, as it were, as to why certain things happened at certain times and what was the significance of certain incidents and things happening in popular music, then it all sort of falls into place as such. So it was definitely by a sort of haphazard way, a roundabout way, that I've found out, how to articulate how I feel with popular music.
Yeah, I mean, going on a handful of years, and here you are teaching the courses that
Yeah,
you
yeah.
enjoyed. Obviously, you're associate lecturer here, on focusing on more of the academic kind of
Yeah.
history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's fantastic. Obviously, you've moved on. When did you complete that, the commercial music course?
I think it was 2008.
Right.
So it's not that long ago, and I went on and did the popular music masters under Martin Clunan at Glasgow,
Right.
which again I had to learn quite quickly on that, and it's quite interesting is that there's different standards at different universities. So what I thought was suitable at UWS wasn't suitable at Glasgow. I discovered that quite quickly, which was good. It was a wake-up call, and again, Martin's been really good in that he's been able to just say, what's wrong about various things or how things would be better, let's say. He'll come out straight out and say it, which is the best way to do it, I think, on some occasions.
Yep.
So I've had to learn on the spot, and because it was just a 1-year course, you've really got to learn quite quickly.
Yep.
And I think in the middle of it, I broke my leg and was off for about 6 weeks, but I still managed to keep on board with it as such. So it was really interesting. I did my dissertation on second album syndrome, which worked out quite well. All the sort of pieces of the jigsaw seemed to come together at the end, and so I ended up getting a distinction for that. And I finished the course, and I think within a month or so I was back here doing some lecturing. I seemed to sort of hit the ground running, not having a chance to think about it over the first year. So again, it takes you about a year or so for you to sort of get to grips with the various modules and things like this. And during that first year, I really didn't do anything much apart from doing the lecturing. But in the second year, I was asked to come back and do something. I started the PhD at Glasgow as well.
So, going back to what you mentioned a lot earlier was about the Glasgow Apollo.
Yeah.
Obviously, is that part of your PhD or your studies on that?
Yeah. The studies focused on the Glasgow Apollo. It's just when I came to because I was self-funded initially, I wanted to do something that was, rather than do something that I probably couldn't engage with, I wanted to do something that that was relevant to the city, because I always felt that, although I've stayed in the city all my life, stayed in Glasgow all my life, a lot of what's happened in the city's passed me by just through living here. Sometimes you're too close to what's happening, music-wise and socially and culturally and whatever. How Glasgow is, thinking about why Glasgow is unique in a lot of respects, good and bad. And I wanted to do something that would engage with, try to find out about my city. I wanted to do something to do with live music, because I could see even then that, recording music had reached an impasse, let's say. It had reached a level where, it came to an end of a period where people were buying recording music, and I thought, well, I could either commemorate it or focus on what aspect of music is still resonates with people, and that's live music, So I wanted to do something like that, and I wanted to do, re-engage with aspects of the city and my youth and things like that. So I thought the perfect thing to do was on the Apollo, which nobody had done anything on before. There'd been a lot of stuff written about it, but there's no literature, there's no academic perspective on it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that intrigued me about it was that everybody was calling it legendary. And it's like, well, why is it legendary? I don't think, if you ask anyone why it's legendary, they don't know. It's because someone else said it's legendary. It's this.
Nostalgic reasons.
Yeah, and it's like a repetition by reiteration. You keep on saying it without realising why. So I just wanted to discover why that was the case.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Obviously, like you said, we've reached somewhat of an impasse again. This, in fact, in the last couple of weeks, it's been reported that recorded music revenues have actually gone up for the first time in something like 15 years, something like that. So it'd be interesting to see where we go from here. Yeah,
it's interesting because, again, we're talking about this morning, and that the American market's shown a 0.1% increase last year. But I've just got to point out that between 2000 and 2010 there's a 52% decrease. So again, it's
Perspective.
okay.
Yeah.
It's going up, you know, but it's what, half the size of the market used to be, you know, 10
Yeah,
years ago.
I mean, that's something perhaps we're just going to have to come to terms with. To be
Exactly.
honest.
I think that the days of getting large revenues from recorded music are over. You know, that's the way it's going to be. You know, and we're facing the problem now as well within live music, which again I'm aware of when I'm doing my research, is that there's a sense as well that with so many small venues closing, that people seem to think that you don't have to engage with live music anymore to catch new bands, because they can catch new bands in any form of media now. Even you go to gigs now, you'll see people more interested in their camera phones than they are in what's happening in front of them. So the fact that even the presence of someone standing 10 yards away singing a song that they've spent months or years writing or whatever, and they're more interested in an image as opposed to the reality of what's happening in front of them. So it shows you that you know, live music at a grassroots level is facing severe problems, you know, because people can go to a large gig and see the screens, and apparently at Sia Ross last week people are holding up iPads.
It's become more trendy.
You know, and I'm sort of, how far is this going to go? So it's so live music's not, you know, live music's facing a number of issues as well, you know.
It kind of, from a perspective of having grown up with kind of, I've known nothing but getting my music from the internet, etc.
Yeah.
So it's kind of holding your camera phones up, whatever, trying to look, doing that kind of stuff speaks to kind of capturing the experience. I guess people, from my perspective, I would be somewhat wary of the fact that the experience is just going to pass you by, and I'll have no way of, you know, remembering it. Obviously, which is kind of
it's like some of the documentaries that were on recently on BBC Four, and people were talking about buying their first single. And remember saving up pocket money. Remember getting 2 buses to get it, and you know, and that single stayed with them. The memory of that single and what it involved and how it resonated, it stayed with them for 20, 30, 40 years as such. And who's going to remember the first MP3? You know.
Well, I mean, you know, just even thinking about it now, I can't remember which one it was, but I can remember that I probably got a handful.
Yeah.
Just in the blink of an eye. You know?
Yeah.
And it's continued like that forever since. It's not. I can't discern certain situations. It's just a continual stream of. Yeah. It, you know, there it is. And now I have it.
And I've got a really great system just now in the home. Just started buying different components because they're quite expensive. The Sonos wireless speaker system, and it's like, you know, and I can sit on my phone and get more or less any album that I want to on there within seconds, and it's great in some respects, you know, but it's like having Christmas every day, you know.
Stops being Christmas after a while.
Yeah, exactly, or your birthday every day or something like this, and it's like, it's good and whatever, but will it have the same impact on me going out in the pouring rain and paying bus fares to go and buy an album that I eventually found in the third shop I've asked for and whatever? It's been import from America, getting it home, staring at it, putting it on the turntable for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Do
you think that speaks to the value of the experience?
Yeah.
A lot more than the actual content.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas now all we have is the content, effectively.
Yeah. It's the sort of tangibility of the total experience. And it was that type of experience again. It's people like buying, you know, the music press, buying the NME, reading a really good review, trying to find out how you might stock it, you know, going on a bus, and sometimes make 3 and 4 attempts to actually buy that album, you know, because it was a lot of the stuff in the NME at that particular point were imports, or, you know, and I always remember trying to, even in the mid to late 70s, trying to buy a Velvet Underground album in Glasgow was, you know, really difficult process, you know. And I always remember buying, I think it was the third album, in late 70s or something like this, and getting it home and thinking how wonderful it was and wow, and how it changed my life, you know, and it's like brilliant, you know. But again, I don't want to sound as if an old fogey and whatever. I'm always the best music ever is the music's being produced just now. I always have believed that. However, if you ask me, will I engage with music the same way now as I did then? Definitely not,
No.
because of the lack of tangibility
Yeah.
and
Well, I
the
mean,
experience.
when the situation changes underneath you, there's not really much you can do.
No.
Those kind of experiences will exist for people that want to find
Oh yeah,
them,
exactly. Yeah.
but it's the fact that there's an easier alternative means that a lot of the vast majority of people won't go that far.
Yeah.
To experience that.
Yeah, and we're all getting lazy now. That's what's happening.
Well, if you're given the option of being
Exactly,
lazy,
of course, yeah, exactly. You know, why would I go and buy a CD in town or something like this now and I can get it straight away on my phone? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, even living here in Ayr, it's like, I mean, I imagine before I would have to get a bus or a train into Glasgow, just to go and find something, come back out again, and that would take me half a day, if not a whole day. But now I don't even have to leave my bedroom. It's kind of a lot easier. Just kind of wrapping up the ideas. Most of from your life, kind of before you've obviously taken music education kind of on board. Yeah. And I've heard you mention this a few times with some context, not a terrible amount of context, is that music matters. Yeah. Obviously, that's I believe it's whymusicmatters.org or something like that. Is a website where they explain, and that's kind of a theme you've taken on board as far as being your mantra and stuff like that. Yeah. Where do you want to take what you're doing now in terms of study? Do you think you'll teach? Do you think that'll be something you want to do?
Oh yeah. I like to teach and do some more research. Mm-hmm. I'm due to finish my study next year. I'm sort of I don't really know. I've read that much and spoke to so many people and driven, and again, I'm working in a haphazard way, but it all seems to make sense at the end. It's like a big jigsaw puzzle that's all come together, but there's bits down the back of the sofa and there's bits that don't fit and whatever. But again, that'll sort itself out. So I've still got a lot to do, but I will finish that next year. Yep. And I've already got lots of ideas for postdoctoral research, which would hopefully, and again, having made some initial inquiries, I know I'll be able to get funding for it, and maybe get at least one or two PhDs out as regards you have the study on board, get funding for it, and you get someone on board to do a PhD on that study. Do you know what I mean? And not to say too much about it, but this is a field that in popular music that no one's looked at so far. Mm-hmm. And I'm no surprised by it, and I want to make sure that I'm sort of the first to do it as such. So I'm championing at the bit to try and get that organised. I say as soon as I finish my PhD, even if it means funding it myself or what, I really don't know, but I want to pursue quite a few different lines of research. And there's so many interesting things out there. And again, people talk about music being decline, or the music industry, which is a term I've always hated. It's the music industry's obviously been decline, which is this is a time where all these issues are happening. Many of them are really very complex, and they're all ripe for investigation, for scrutiny and exploration, basically. And I say I've got a bundle of ideas that I want to pursue. So hopefully, again, I'll be able to pursue some of these things maybe next year.